Big Turbo GT coming to you here. And I just want to say one thing, and that is that I'm going to be giving my opinion in this video. It's going to be a short video of what I think about using factory head bolts on the Mazda F2T engine, as well as over torquing them, and what results will happen from that. A lot of misconception going around. I've been building these engines now for 5 years straight. I have an exceptionally large amount of knowledge of how they work, what works with them, and I'm going to put this to bed right now. Alright, this is a message to those wannabe engineers on probe forums and Facebook and all that that say, oh, using your stock head bolts on an F2T and over torquing them is just asking to warp your head. I just went for almost 3 years, 2.5 years on high compression cast pistons, okay? And after that long, they still look pretty damn good, if I do say so myself, okay? Some of them got a little bit hot. Oh wait, no, that's the wrong set. It's this set. See how those look like brand spanking shiny new on the side still? And other than that bad piston that I melted, which was from injector failure and overboost, had nothing to do with how the engine was put together. None of these pistons have been clean. This is 35,420 miles. See how clean that is? Okay, well, I know what you're thinking. Well, that doesn't mean shit, because that doesn't mean the head is. Well, the head's perfectly fine. I blew my engine up, didn't have the head machined at all, and just threw it right back on after cleaning the surfaces on my new engine. I have perfect compression. I've hit boost at 12 pounds on a big TO4B at 9.2 to 1 compression several times, and it hasn't lifted the head. Okay, the head bolts still are at 75 foot-pounds. I checked them, and this is my 35,000 mile head gasket. That was on that engine where I used factory head bolts over torqued to 75 foot-pounds from the factory recommended 64 foot-pounds. And that head gasket is in perfect condition. There's no blown out spots. There's no ovaling of the compression ring on the side of the head gasket where the cylinder is. There's absolutely no signs of leakage. There's no signs of warped head. There's no signs of anything. And this head has been taken off 4 times after being torqued to 70 foot-pounds or 75 foot-pounds, and has never been milled the 4 times that I've taken it off these last 4 times, because the head gasket never failed. And all 4 times I've torqued it back to 75 foot-pounds in 3 steps, 25, 50, 75. And I've never had an issue. Factory head bolts have held 400 wheel horsepower on an F2T. I don't want to hear shit about how you need ARPs if you want to hold serious power. One more small thing that I wanted to add to this video is I've used this set of head bolts the entire length that I've had this car. Okay, I've had the car almost 5 years. Okay, blew the original engine up at 189,000 miles. I melted number 4 cylinder. Big coincidence there. Okay, reused my head bolts. Okay, then I blew a head gasket first, reused my head bolts. Car went 1.5 years, then I melted a piston. Didn't machine the head, reused my head bolts. When another, well, no, that was the eBay engine, so that only lasted 2 weeks, and then that blew up. Then without milling the head yet again, I put on another head gasket and new pistons, which just went 2.5 years. I've reused the same set of head bolts 6 times, and they're the original. They were 189,000 when I blew my first engine. They've got about 330,000 miles on these head bolts, and they've been reused 5 or 6 times. I did. Okay, so first head gasket failure, melted piston, blown eBay head gasket, blown eBay pistons, and now the 5th blown melted cylinder 4 on these factory Mazda 8.6 to 1 pistons after 2.5 years of big turbo and untuned on basically stock injectors. Okay, and I just reused my head bolts again, and this engine runs perfect. It has perfect compression after I seated the rings. It has absolutely no signs of coolant leakage past the head gasket or any cracks or anything like that. And I've used the same head. Well, no, the first time I blew the head up, I replaced the head with one that had dual springs, which I took out and put back to stock springs. But this head has been on the last 4 failures, and I've never milled it, because I didn't, the head gaskets that I blew, I didn't mill it after the first head gasket that I blew, okay? Or I milled it the first time I blew the head gasket, and since then I haven't. Through 2 melted pistons, 2 pistons with broken ring lands, and an eBay head gasket failure. I never milled the head, and it's never warped at 75 foot-pounds on factory head bolts. And each time the head gasket was not blown. When I melted the 2 different pistons, 2 different engines, and broke ring lands on another engine, never did it blow the head gasket. And I've reused these same bolts. So to say that they're not sufficient is bullshit, because I'm probably around 300 wheel horsepower at 15 pounds on a TO4B with 9.2 to 1 compression in my port and airflow mods and shit. I haven't got dynoed because my clutch won't hold a low RPM pull, and I got to turn timing down a little bit, but I'm probably in the neighborhood of 300 wheel horsepower on factory head bolts, and they've never once lifted the head. It's never stretched, never done anything. I've blown 2 head gaskets the entire time I had this car. Both of them were before piston failures, and since I started over torquing my head bolts, I've never blown another head gasket. I probably could have reused the same head gasket all 3 times and been perfectly fine. But I chose to replace the head gasket at least. But it's never once failed. I've had the engine apart 4 times now, and all the head gaskets were fine. It was bottom end failures on the piston. So to say that factory head bolts aren't sufficient is a complete stupidity. And I just figured that I would share that with you. My auto.